Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities to perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. So let me check one thing real quick. So, Narada Muni is, let's see here. So, he's putting forward some simple doubts to Lord Brahma. So, Lord Brahma's position is that he's one of the guna avatars of the universe, in charge of the creation, and like in that regards, the secondary creation. And he's the first created living being, directly a son from Vishnu. He's and also he's created without the help of a mother. So one of Brahma's names is Swayambhu. So Narada Muni is trying to understand exactly what the situation is, because one aspect too is that at least from the perspective of like the demigods and in different parts of the universe, just the whole perception of reality is different. For example, one simple thing is that in the heavenly planets and in higher planets, that the duration of life is extremely long, that they live for thousands and thousands of years. And on this planet, someone, especially now in Kali Yuga, someone may live for generally like 80 years or something. That's like the general life expectancy. So when you live for 80 years and you live for 10,000 years or 100,000 years or a million years, your understanding of reality is different, in the sense that you have, especially living on other planets, because there's more knowledge there, there's opportunity for different types of sense gratification. We read that in the Bhagavatam, and we become fascinated. And like in the 5th canto, that there's fruits that they fall down, and they break open and create rivers, and then you put different ornaments in there, and they turn to gold. So just the whole way that reality and things function is completely different. So Narada Muni is living and existing and understanding and seeing, and has that wisdom. He's seeing Lord Brahma face to face. It's not a question of, like they talk nowadays about like Indian mythology and this with that, and this story, that story, and then you have people that are strict followers of the Vedas, but then they consider the stories mythology, and so everybody's confused nowadays. But there was no question of Narada Muni being confused, because he was directly seeing Lord Brahma face to face, and he's heard, and he's probably has seen Lord Brahma create different things and like that. I forget the exact order of creation, but Lord Brahma, he engages in tapasya, which is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Brahma Samhita, for a long time. It's just him existing, and then he gets the inspiration, or the Shakti, the empowerment to create by the blessings of Vishnu. And so there's different paths, or just there's different ways that that's explained of what happened. He gets him getting darshan of the spiritual world. In the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that how he saw the Vaikuntha Lokas, and that's mentioned in the there's a picture of that actually, which I've only seen in one place, but that he got darshan of that, and then specifically in the Brahma Samhita, it's mentioned how he saw the spiritual world and things like that, and then also he became fully aware of his spiritual identity. So Lord Brahma got that empowerment, and it's described that he's the engineer, in the sense that he's not the creator, that the ingredients are there, and then he just utilizes all those things. Just like some artists, you may give them whatever different paints, so you give them the prime whatever it is. The main colors, I think this is yellow, red, and I forget exactly. But then blue.
YC, yeah.
Yeah.
YMC.
Yeah.
Yellow, magenta, cyan?
Tiam.
Yeah. And then there's one more color.
Yeah.
You painter, you know.
So you give that painter those colors, and then from there he can create all the other colors, because you mix this yellow and then blue, and you get green, and then you mix red and blue, and you get purple, and then you mix yellow and red, and then you get orange. And then you put this portion, that portion, you get this shade and that shade and whatever. And then how you get white, I don't know. But anyways, white and black. So the painter, especially one who's, anyways, you can go on with the painting thing. But the idea is that the paints are given to him, but the painter himself isn't the cause of the colors of the paint. So it was provided by somebody else. So Lord Brahma is given all the ingredients of how to create the material world. He's also given the intelligence. He's empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's an empowered living being. The Nectar Devotion, I'll read a little bit of that, but it mentions that Lord Brahma he's a jiva, but specifically he's an empowered jiva, so he has a little bit more special qualities than other jivas. He's more elevated. He has the topmost position in the material world. And so Narada Muni is, this understanding is there and seeing all that. So he's interested. We also understand too that there's other sons of Lord Brahma. There's great sages and rishis from Lord Brahma. In the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that the four Kumars were created, and then being angry with them for not wanting to engage in the duty of filling the universe with living entities. Rudra, Shiva was born from between his eyebrows from anger. The Lord Brahma creates so many other living entities like this, rishis and things, and all these things are created, and then they fill the universe. And so Lord Brahma also, the Vedas he receives the knowledge, the Vedic knowledge from his heart, like that. It's just what is it? Tena Hridayadi Kali Muyanti Akshuriya. So he receives this transcendental knowledge, this Vedic knowledge, and he assimilates that knowledge, and then he spreads that knowledge and teaches that knowledge to his sons, and his sons teach that knowledge to others. And so in that way the Vedic knowledge is spread down and kept, and it's preserved in that manner. So many things are taught in the Vedas, and so many things are taught in the Vedas. And so Lord Brahma's understanding that and explaining that. So anyways, Narada Muni, being one of the sons of Brahma, so he's understanding all these things, and he's putting forward this question. And he's wondering and seeing. He says we. So many people are seeing, and there's sometimes that confusion that is Brahma the supreme? Is he the topmost? Usually people they say that maybe Shiva supreme or whatever, Durga things, but generally, or not generally, but sometimes people they try to take Brahma as supreme. So I just want to read something here real quick, just to give more insight into Lord Brahma. So I'll read the whole thing, but previous to this, it's mentioned that there's some 50 qualities that are found in Krishna, and Sri Krishna. And then those qualities are also found in living entities to a minute portion. So some mention, I'll just read a couple. So like forgiving, grave, self-satisfied, religious, heroic, gentle, respectful, happy, auspicious, popular, all famous, worshipable, supreme controller. So these qualities are found little bits in the part and parcels, the jivas. But there's more qualities which are sometimes partially manifested in Brahman and Shiva. So those qualities are changeless, all cognizant, ever fresh, Satchit Ananda, possessing an eternal blissful body, and possessing all mystic perfections. So we see that with Brahma, that he seems to know everything, at least of the material world. He's very, very intelligent. And this changelessness is that, we don't really see or hear about Brahma, growing old or things like that. I mean, he gets old in ages, but he has a different different material construction. So he doesn't, at least from what I've understood, it's not like he's growing a beard and things and slowing down, and he suffers from arthritis or things like that. Because it's to be Lord Brahma is it's due to some good karma. It's not a position that that one it's just randomly bestowed upon one. There's workings of the universe, there's karma and things. So somebody doesn't get into a post or position just by chance or for not being qualified. So some of those qualities are mentioned of Lord Brahma. And so so another aspect too here is that the sages are thinking that he performed great austerities. So of this meditation, of focusing the mind, he just also too, even austerities in and over that self generally, it's understood that one is engaged in celibacy. So Lord Brahma engaged in austerity, engaged in tapasya, engaged in all these things. And so when one engages in austerities, anybody, but specifically, not specifically, but generally the Brahmanas, they engage in austerities and they get power from that, and then they don't, utilize that power unnecessarily. That's mentioned in the Ramayana in respect to Vishwamrita. He was powerful enough to destroy these demons that were coming and attacking him. But as far as Dharma goes, it's not the duty of a Brahmin to go and kill demons. So the Kshatriyas are engaged in that duty. So even though he was competent to fight and kill them, he didn't do that. He followed Dharma. So the Brahmin is generally engaged in austerity. And then from that austerity comes power, realization, and so many things. Also, just a basic principle is just being able to control the senses, because Lord Brahma is able to create so much magnificent things in the material world, and if he's not able to control his senses, he'll become bewildered by that. And we have the understanding that sometimes it's not always that Lord Brahma is a pure devotee. Sometimes there's mixed desires in that. So if one has mixed desires and one is given in a top position, one may exploit that position or fall further down, and the endeavor to become fully perfect, to become self-realized. So general tapasya is understood as it's explained in the Bhagavatam, but Prabhu would sometimes explain that the yogis, that they sit in the fire in the summer and practically burn themselves, and in the winter they get in the ice cold water, and in this way they practice meditation and in that very difficult manner. And tapasya also, specifically in this day and age, there isn't so much question of tapasya. It's just living life in itself is an austerity for most people. Having to work and then having to go here, go there, and all the different things. Just living life is an austerity. But the austerity is useful and is required, especially, in any sphere to be successful, materially or spiritually, but especially in making spiritual advancement. Austerity is required to not just eat what you want when you want, or freely enjoy the senses whenever, wherever. Just living a hedonistic life isn't compatible with true spiritual realization. Generally, when individuals want to enjoy in the name of spiritual life, they'll water down the process and say, we all these rules and regulations we don't have to follow, or You don't have to rise early. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. You just love God. You just love Krishna. And that's all. That's the main thing. But the rules and regulations are there in order to help the individual maintain his determination, focus, and purity, so that one can not be swayed by that which is temporary or which is not conducive to one's self-realization. So this information is given there, and it's taught properly by the spiritual master. So one big tapasya is celibacy, being celibate. And generally, if you tell somebody that they have to be celibate, most people will probably cry, or they'll be very disturbed. Just like sometimes, people go into prison or jail, or they're forced to be celibate, and it's a big thing for some people. So, but if one can, the thing is that in Krishna consciousness, it's taught that we get a higher taste. So naturally, when one gets a higher taste and one experiences the true nature of Krishna consciousness and the happiness that's there in that, one gives up these lower things and without really much consideration. And then at that point, there isn't, one is controlling the senses, but it's natural, because one wants to speak of Krishna, one wants to hear about Krishna, one wants to engage in devotional service, one wants to take Krishna prasad. It's not so much of a grilling process or just some intense like grinding the teeth or something like that. But the senses naturally find their happiness in respected places in the service of Krishna. So obviously that comes after some time, but the acharyas have given that understanding that there's this anartha vritti, and then following that, these different things of engaging in the process of Krishna consciousness, and then ruchi and all these different things come. So this pranam drishta nivartante, or no, this pranam drishta, I forget, what's the next word?
Pranam drishta nivartate.
That's it, okay. So that one obtains this higher transcendental taste of Krishna consciousness. And so all these different things are there. So this tapasya. So really in Krishna consciousness, tapasya it's not so much actually, if we look at it, compared to what other individuals had to do in previous ages. Sometimes there may be some tapasya, if we're doing some service for Krishna, if we have to mow the lawn and it's hot outside, maybe, we may sweat or whatever, it may be inconvenient, or we may have to do some service and we go far and we're hungry, so we have to fast a little bit, or whatever. We have some headache, we have to do something, or whatever. Something may be there. We're out on book distribution and people are, being very rude. So some tapasya, it's you can't get away with it. Even in material life, if someone is trying to be very successful materially, like there's these big, the famous people or rich people, they have so many secretaries and they can't even waste a second of their life, this call, that call. If they make the wrong call at the wrong time, they'll lose so many millions of dollars. And they're constantly in anxiety, and then they have to, they have a certain diet and they eat certain things so that they can perform at optimum levels and get enough rest so that they can, utilize their brain and how to make money. So in material life or spiritual life, there'll be that tapasya, that inconvenience. So we should take the inconvenience for Krishna, not for material things, because it's material things have a beginning, middle, and an end. What's the point of working so hard to obtain $1 million and then stressing all about it, and you get that money and then what, it goes when you die. So one who actually has intelligence, he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also too, one who has intelligence, he tries to understand things as they are. So Srila Prabhupada makes a point in the purport about Narada Muni. Let's see here exactly, but he explains that, I believe he explains that Narada Muni is an intelligent disciple. Let's see here. But, okay, so Narada Muni, he's intelligent in the sense that he was seeing Lord Brahma, he was understanding that Lord Brahma is engaging in tapasya, and he's doing this austerity, so maybe he's not actually supreme. Because if someone's engaged in austerities and is working so hard and doing so many different things, it's indicative of it that they're not in the topmost position because they have something to do. Srila Prabhupada would give the example of one person, I don't think it was a German godbrother or something, but someone that went to India and they traveled to all the different temples, and then they concluded that Krishna was supreme because he doesn't have anything to do, that he just enjoys, he just plays on his flute, he has a good time. So he's not obligated that he has to go and do this and do that. He has some schedule that he has to perform. In the material world, generally everybody has a schedule. They have to do this. They have to engage in activities. They have to work. They have to, eat. They're forced to do things by the material nature because they're under control. They're not the supreme controllers. So the position of Brahma is that though he's a controller and he's the supreme controller of the material world, he's not the supreme controller of the material creation. He's created. And he has to engage in austerities and tapasya in order to gain power. So his power that he has isn't, it's not, he had to do something to obtain that power, which the point is made with Krishna, especially as a child, is that he killed Putana without engaging in any austerities, any nothing. He just, he was able to kill her simply, just by sucking on her breast. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't have to do anything to obtain power. It doesn't engage in tapasya. We see in pastimes of Krishna and his leelas and things that he may do something to seem like he's, he may meditate on himself or, whatever, go to Gurukul or things like that and show the pastime of seeing like he's getting knowledge or gaining power or gaining weapons or something. But those are just pastimes. He has all that knowledge. He has all that information. But generally he engages in those things to teach us. It's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains that, whatever a great man does, common men follow. So Krishna is the greatest of men. He's this supreme person, Purushottama. So he engages in different things, and also he explains that too in the Bhagavad Gita that he has no duty to perform, but he does that duty in order to teach others. I believe it's in the 4th chapter. So all these different things are given there. So Lord Brahma's position that he's engaging in these austerities, and so Narada Muni being an intelligent disciple is seeing that. And so Srila Prabhupada opens up this purport by explaining that one should not blindly accept the spiritual master as God himself. So Lord Brahma would just be people nowadays go and profess that whatever they're Bhagavan or they're Kalki Avatar or whatever. There's so many people that say, well, I'm God, you're God, we're all God, or I'm Bhagavan. They say so many different things. But these people that claim to be God, they don't do anything wonderful, anything magical, or nothing. It's just usually just some old person with a beard, and they claim to be God and have all these mystic powers, and then they accrue some small following of people who are not very intelligent. But we see with Brahma that there was maybe some room for that because he actually did something amazing. He's creating the material world. He's, so much supreme intelligence. He knows past, present, and future. I mean, he can actually say something tangible. He can give actual knowledge. His senses are controlled. He also we read in the Bhagavatam the demigods, the devas and things that they generally have some effulgence. They like that. So there's some room to this is a great personality. But nowadays so many people claim to be God and complain that they're supreme, and then why are they supreme? Well, they say, well, I'm God because my mother said that I'm God, and so they say so many stupid things. But such individuals, they're nonsense, and they're not supreme. So one has to be actually intelligent. So Prabhupada explains that one shouldn't blindly accept the spiritual master as God. So it's understood that the spiritual master teaches the transcendental knowledge, which culminates in the understanding that Ishvara Parama Krishna, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also this too, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arsabhavitya, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that we are his servants. So the spiritual master teaches that knowledge. And then he also teaches the proper method in which to engage in tapasya, in which to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how to serve Him, how to please Him. This is the duty of the spiritual master. So it's an important point because so many people, they don't know this or understand this in this day and age. I wanted to read one thing, well, a couple things. But it's explained in the 6th canto. It's a nice verse, but it's in relation, I forget exactly, I think it's the demigods they're speaking this, but this is being spoken that leaders who have fallen into ignorance and who mislead people by directing them to the path of destruction, as described in the previous verse, are in effect boarding a stone boat, and so too are those who blindly follow them. A stone boat would be unable to float and would sink in the water with its passengers. Similarly, those who mislead people go to hell, and their followers go with them. So, it was a pretty heavy verse, but reality sometimes is shaking. Is that individuals who are proclaiming to be, spiritual leaders or guides or whatever, and improperly instructing people, they'll have to suffer for that, along with those people that follow them. It is described as boarding a stone boat. So we don't generally see stone boats because a stone boat just sinks. There's no question of going on a great sailors on a stone boat. Unless you have mystic powers, and then you can make the stone boat float. So stone boats sink. So if a disciple follows a spiritual master who isn't properly situated in the transcendental knowledge, who isn't teaching in verdict or in line with the parampara, and isn't coming from a proper disciplic succession, isn't adhering to Shastra, is just concocting things, it's boarding a stone boat. And so a stone boat is going to sink. And so one has to get the proper knowledge from the proper source. There's also some verses mentioned that, these are very nice actually, in the prayers of Shachavrata Muni in the 8th canto. And so he gives a whole long list of, not a whole long list, but maybe some 10, 15 slokas, something like that, offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so in his prayers, he talks about knowledge, and he makes some good points. So I'll just read a couple of them because they're in relationship to the spiritual master and also the bogus guru. So just some here. So neither all the demigods, nor the so-called gurus, nor all other people, either independently or together, can offer mercy that equals even 1/10,000th of yours. Therefore, I wish to take shelter of your lotus feet. As a blind man being unable to see, except another blind man as his leader, people who do not know the goal of life accept someone as a guru who is a rascal and a fool. But we are interested in self-realization. Therefore, we accept you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as our spiritual master, for we are able to see in all directions and are omniscient, like the sun. So that's important there in that regard, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and those who follow, who are surrendered onto Him, they're able to see. They actually have vision. They're not in darkness. When the sun goes down, things change. Generally, when it's dark outside, thieves come out. People are unsure if you're trying to especially if there's no electricity. It's very difficult to see. Whatever, some 10 feet ahead. Sometimes it's I don't know if here specifically, but I remember driving in some parts of America, and it's very dark, and it's the road is turning, and it's I can barely see the road, and you put the high beams on. Especially there's a highway from Knoxville to Asheville, North Carolina. I remember always driving that, especially in the dark. It was turning and twisting, can barely see and things like that. So it's there's some worry there, and it's okay, I gotta really focus. But when the sun's out, there's no need to worry. There's no need to be in anxiety because you can see things as they are. So that's a position of being in Krishna conscious, is that one sees things as they are, and that there's no anxiety in that regards. And even too, one may be so many things. One feels one who is properly established in his true spiritual identity and position, understanding Krishna and the messages taught in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Unnecessary anxiety isn't there because one understands the material world, and one also understands that Krishna's hand in everything. So there isn't any unnecessary confusion or anxiety. Just like nowadays, people are so much confused and in anxiety about so many things. Specifically, so many people are fearful of death because they don't know what happens, or they think that's it, or whatever. Or people die and then they never come back, and then someone is crying so much about a family member that left, but then that family member has long gone and is completely forgotten about you and has entered another material body and is enjoying another family. So people don't have the proper spiritual knowledge in this day and age. But one who has proper spiritual knowledge, and who's not only does one have the knowledge, but one is fixed in the vegan of that knowledge, there's no illusion for that individual. So, and that's mentioned also in the Bhagavad Gita, which is Yat Gatva Napurar Moham Evam Yashasti Pandava Yena Bhutanya Sheshami Drakshashat Yatomai. So that one who gets the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master, as mentioned in the previous verse, he's done that and he's realized that knowledge. He sees things as they are. He becomes fixed in that knowledge, and then he sees everything in relation to Krishna. So continuing reading a little bit of this. So a materialistic so-called guru instructs his materialistic disciples about economic development and sense gratification, and because of such instructions, the foolish disciples continue a materialistic existence of ignorance. But your lordship gives knowledge that is eternal, and the intelligent person receiving such knowledge is quickly situated in his original constitutional position. So it's very clear, it's very black and white. Not that one has a guru and then sometimes teaches, I don't know what things these bogus gurus teach this day, but whatever, you chant this mantra, you become self-realized, and then also too, you work very hard in the material world and rise up and attain a lot of money and attain a comfortable position, and you enjoy life in the material world, and like this, be happy in the material world, be happy, have a nice, fulfilling material life, and then also too, you cultivate a little bit of spiritual life, and this way, be very satisfied. So the proper guru doesn't teach that. The proper guru teaches that you can work very hard and you can rise to a high position in the material world, but you have to understand that at every step there is danger. That you may work hard and you may try to attain a big position in this material world, but don't be an illusion. That the Shastra teaches that there's danger at every step. That you may work hard to achieve a lot of money, but then, by the arrangement of the Supreme, that money may be taken, it may be stolen. You may work very hard to get to the top of a company or something, but then you may be fired or kicked out. Don't put all of your endeavor and energy into the material sphere. Do what is required, do what is needed, but always give higher importance to the service of Sri Krishna and his devotees. The guru teaches that, and he helps the disciple move in that way. He also teaches too that at one point you have to retire from such activities. Srila Prabhupada at one point was pushing one disciple, or I don't think he was a disciple, but one supporter, I forget his name exactly, but in Vrindavan, the man I believe was Vanapras, so he was pushing him to take sannyas and to leave the association of his wife and engage full-time in devotional service. And that individual became disturbed by Srila Prabhupada, and I think he left at one point. But Srila Prabhupada was pushing him to just not to be comfortable materially, but to surrender fully to Krishna and engage fully in that and become detached from the material sphere. So the guru will speak these messages, and the disciple or the one who is hearing, he may not be at that level, but that information is given so that one remembers these instructions. So it's not a surprise at one point when things are going wrong materially. Then these verses may come up, and then it will inspire the disciple or the individual to take more seriously the process of Krishna consciousness. So the guru teaches this information and teaches this wisdom. So this is the proper guru, the proper spiritual master. And so Narada Muni is a proper disciple. So Brahma is the proper guru, and Narada is a proper disciple. So continuing this relationship of guru-disciple, of inquiring, of speaking, of explaining the knowledge. We'll also see in previous verses that Lord Brahma will express that, I forget exactly how he says it, but anyways, but he'll frankly admit that, yes, you're correct, I'm not the supreme, that there's someone superior to me. So there wasn't any it wasn't like, oh, you've asked a question and I don't want to answer this, or like, oh, I am supreme, or whatever. Brahma frankly spoke the proper conclusions. He wasn't hesitant to do that. So the spiritual master is never hesitant to give the proper Shastra conclusions, or doesn't want to shy away from that. That's something that's controversial. I don't want to speak on that, or I don't want to answer this question, or whatever. There may be situations where the spiritual master may not speak things because the audience may be challenging, or may not be willing to hear it, or it may not be beneficial. So the spiritual master is intelligent. He knows what to say and when to say and how to say it. But the spiritual master will never change the verdict of Shastra. He may not say something, but he won't say the opposite or whatever, or wrongly encourage a disciple. If one is sincere, then, of course, if one is insincere, then there's different things. We see that Srila Prabhupada behaved with disciples in different ways. There was one disciple that was insincere, and he was asking Prabhupada different questions, and I just shortening it, but Prabhupada told him along the lines that, well, better that you leave Krishna consciousness then, if that's your attitude, like that. And so that disciple was coming in on that mood, and Srila Prabhupada gave one disciple the blessings, whatever, to never find a spiritual master in so many lifetimes. So the guru has to see and understand, and so he will take these things into account. But we can understand that if we go to the spiritual master in a blank slate and in the proper mood, that we won't be cheated, and then we won't lose. And even that too, we may get an instruction from the spiritual master. It may be whatever. We may have, if we have some doubts, we can ask about it. And if we may not understand it or whatever, or maybe it seems contrary or whatever, there may, so many different things that may be with that. But we can understand that if we try to carry out the orders of the spiritual master, even though we may feel qualified, we may feel disqualified, we may be disqualified, or we may not know how to do it. So many things, or whatever, we may get some order, and it may really shake up our life, or things may go backwards. The spiritual master says to do something, and we do it, and then materially things all fall apart. We can have the firm faith and conviction that that Krishna will always help, and that by engaging in the service of the spiritual master and by executing his instructions, we actually get the greatest treasure, and we get firm faith, a stronger faith in the orders of the spiritual master. We get more faith and strength also to just in the verdict of Shastra and his instructions. And Krishna will help and will protect and maintain, and will help those devotees that are surrendered onto him, and specifically surrendered on the spiritual master. So the disciple also too isn't just blindly ignorant and just tunnel vision, that that no information of Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but all I know is just about my spiritual master. So the disciple also understands Krishna and truth also. He understands Krishna's position, that the spiritual master is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that the spiritual master isn't the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, that there's a difference between the jiva and and a Vishnu. It's understood very properly, because if the disciple doesn't understand that and then starts to put the spiritual master on the level of Bhagavan and goes, praying to the spiritual master that, oh, you're so amazing, that so many universes emanate from your skins, and you're all knowing in past, present, and future, and you create and maintain the material worlds and all these things, and like this, the spiritual master won't be pleased with that, because the spiritual master understands that I am not Bhagavan. We see that Lord Chaitanya, when he was praised as being Vishnu, that sometimes he would block his ears and say that don't do this. This isn't proper. I am not Vishnu. This isn't proper to hear. So the spiritual master always teaches that worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the disciple may have extreme high affinity for the spiritual master, and that is proper and that is needed. But Srila Prabhupada, as he taught, that when his disciples were beginning to worship him on the level of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of Krishna himself, Srila Prabhupada rejected those disciples to teach a lesson. So the disciple has to be intelligent and understand these things. And the spiritual master too is also teaching. And the spiritual master, so many different things and intricacies are there. Just like Brahma, Narada Muni is questioning and asking But naturally, Brahma doesn't want to hear himself glorified on the level of Krishna, of his spiritual master. That that Lord Brahma, you're greater than even your spiritual master. The spiritual master doesn't like to hear that either, because it's that mood and that bhav and that feeling that everything he's doing is by the mercy of his spiritual master. So these intricacies are seen there. So Lord Brahma is explaining, and so he's straightforward. He's not, hiding anything and not trying to, shy away, because then maybe that tendency is there that, people think I'm so great and I'm so great and this and that. So I don't want to lose that, that my disciple is, glorifying me, but then, my spiritual master is greater than me. But there may be different things like that. So one has to be careful not to get caught up in this fame, adoration, and distinction, these impurities of Krishna consciousness. So Lord Brahma will explain in verses to come about how he was empowered to do this creation. That you're correct that I engaged in these great austerities, this Gauram Tapasa. And so I did these austerities because I'm not perfect. I had to engage in these things to come to this platform to gain the power to do things properly. But there is a person who is more intelligent than me, and that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is Bhagavan. That is, Sri Krishna. And then Brahma will explain that he spoke these verses to me. All this knowledge that I'm explaining and transmitting and giving to you, these in essence, they were given to me. I'm simply elaborating upon that. So that mood is there, that this knowledge that you're getting isn't coming from me. It's coming from Krishna himself. And I'm simply just repeating it and explaining, whatever realization that I've had upon meditating upon this transcendental sound. So there's a couple things there. If there's any questions or comments about anything, we can open that up now.
Hare Krishna. So these verses that you were reading, I was trying to look them up, but where is that? Because I remember reading it too, about that they accept the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Guru, and that not accepting some rascal as a Guru.
Yeah, that's in. I started reading, so that's in the 8th canto, 24th chapter, and then I started reading at verse 49.
Okay, canto is chapter 24. Okay. What do you? We were having a conversation with one of with a person recently, myself and Kalki Prabhu, and we were realizing that, so this person has a particular spiritual master who says that, you can attain liberation whether you accept God or you don't.
Yeah.
You can attain liberation irrespective of whether you accept God or not. If the concept of God, if you like that concept of God, you can have it, and it will be helpful for you. But otherwise, you don't. And according to that person, even though his guru explicitly is enjoying so many things like riding dirt bikes and flying planes and going skiing and and all these kind of things, and also says that he's never read Bhagavad Gita and doesn't accept Krishna also. Still, he thinks that his guru is whatever. He thinks that his guru is on this spiritual platform because his guru is exhibiting this principle where he can do everything and anything and still not be affected by it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, ultimately our point was that although they speak of liberation and things like that, it seems that people are attracted to that kind of philosophy or whatever primarily because they're trying to escape responsibilities and escape realities, and these give some kind of vague idea of like some liberation, which he was not able to even explain what he meant by liberation.
Yeah.
So why is it that people, when we give them a very clear concept and we're trying to explain to them that this is logical and this and that, but they still seem to want to go to this vague idea where they're not clear about anything really, but they're so attracted to that vagueness. They don't have any clear, they don't know who their gurus, they don't know what platform their gurus. When will you know you'll attain spiritual perfection? You'll know when you know.
Yeah.
That's it. How do you know someone's on it? Only they know. There was no answer to anything.
Yeah.
But they're so attracted to that philosophy, and it blows my mind. What do you think? Why do you think they're attracted to something that they can't make sense of, but they're really attracted to it?
Yeah, I got a couple answers to that. So the baseline answer is just like insincerity, but to elaborate upon that further is, so like sometimes I think about in the Brahma Samhita, it's mentioned that like when Lord Brahma was born, that he came out of lotus flower, and then I have to look at the word exactly, but there's a specific Sanskrit word, and it's described something along the lines like due to previous samskaras from a previous life, he was like had some attraction to like search out and understand like what was life about, and he had like some push towards him that was like pious in that regards, to like engage in tapasya and things like that. So like the underlying thing, it seems like those individuals that are attracted to that, they have some like inclination like within their heart or some desire that kind of like pushes them in that direction.
Some fascination.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're
previous
fascinated
life
about.
or something. Or just like their whole like how they want like the direction they're trying to go in the material world. Because like some people they come and they hear and like everything makes sense and they whatever, they agree with the philosophy, they like the philosophy, they like this and like that. But when it's like actually like to surrender, it's like they will never do it. And why don't they want to do it? Because deep down inside they know that they want to enjoy the world in a certain way, and then if they surrender they won't be able to do that, so therefore there's like this fear, otherwise that's like, I think I'm kind of condensing everything, but there's like that seems to be it, that there's just this, that they have this deep sense of knowing that whatever their sense of knowing in this regard is that like they have like this strong feeling that like if I hear from this person or whatever, I've become a disciple of this person, they're like all my desires will be fulfilled, which are material desires, because they probably have no conception of what liberation is, and it's just like it doesn't make any sense. But the thing is that it makes sense to them in their world because they just want to enjoy sense gratification.
Yeah, and they can't describe it either.
Yeah.
If you ask them to describe it, they don't describe it.
I mean, mostly just feeling based.
Yeah.
It's like I feel good, like it make whatever it feels, just like an emotional thing. So there's a couple of like angles there.
Mr. Prabhu has a
No.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Go ahead.
One of the things also is, these people is so stubborn. They want to stubbornly be stuck up, and they don't want to really hear the truth. And they don't want to hear it. Even when they hear it, they already know everything. They already know everything, and like our only problem with you is that you have a problem with us. If you didn't have a problem with us, you wouldn't have a problem with you. But like by nature, the devotees, they, when they go and preach Krishna consciousness, it's a very polarizing thing. That people love us or hate us. There's really no neutral party. Once people get to know us, they either love us or hate us. And the same holds with this person too that Vishnu and I were talking about. And I have another point. I don't know if you want to speak, elaborate on what I said.
No, I can make a point.
Another thing too, you're speaking about how people work so hard. People are working so hard, like these millionaires, that they have to like do this and do that, and like they have all these like schedules and all that stuff, And even this mess one thing up, then they like their whole diet, and they lose so many millions of dollars, So they're working so hard to go to hell. So we also see over here that devotees are working very hard, but we should be very careful to remove like the mentality of enjoyment, because the karmis are working hard to go to hell, whereas the devotees, we may be working hard, but if we do not remove the right attitude, if we do not have the right attitude, then instead of going to Krishna, we'll go to heaven. We'll go to Sarga. And that's a big pitfall that we must be very careful of, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
And then one last thing, now the Muni can realize, that the devotees, that Brahma is not the supreme person, that someone else must be supreme, is performing these austerities. But we can see in the Bhagavatam too that Hiranyakashipu was extremely frustrated actually. And he becomes very frustrated and asks Prabhupada that, you see, I performed so many austerities and I became so great, but where are you getting your power from? Because I didn't see you perform any austerities. Where are you getting your power from? And Prahlad answers, I'm getting my power from the same place you're getting your power. So the demons, they may work so hard to get all these abilities and learn, like to become a chef or to become a salesman or to become like a manager or to become a driver, whatever, they may work so hard. But Krishna, if he sees that there is a need, he can empower the devotee to do things which the devotee could previously not do at all. And we see this, that so many of us, like Matravan was saying, how many people were trained to manage, how many people were trained on sales, how many people were trained to do all these things. But Krishna empowers them. When Krishna empowers them, these blessings come from Krishna automatically. That was just a point I wanted to make.
Yeah. One thing too, I think sometimes this empowerment also, Krishna may also make facilities to help that devotee become proficient in whatever he wants him to, Like Krishna empowered Srila Prabhupada's disciples to paint, but then we see also that technique became more and more refined. So sometimes that may also manifest in that way. That someone may have an inclination or something, and Krishna may empower that and then water that more and more, and then that person becomes expert in that particular field.
So you were reading these qualities from the Nectar of Devotion of living entities, the qualities, 50 qualities, some of them. So you were reading, and then you read some more qualities like all knowledgeable. So those qualities belong to Lord Brahma?
Yeah, it says like that he manifests those.
And he manifests
And Shiva.
a spiritual body?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It may be that he manifests a spiritual body when Brahma is specifically Vishnu himself. Because that's sometimes the case. Brahma sometimes is directly Vishnu takes that close if there's someone qualified. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I didn't get enough time to research into that. There's that section that elaborates on that. But that was one thing that popped in my mind.
Okay. Or because he's Acharya, he has spiritual power.
Yeah, that's another.
Okay.
That's a question. Oh, well, it's not there. I got a question.
Hare Krishna. I think there is a name of Lord Brahma. I don't know the name, I don't remember, but the name means he's the one who has been born without mother.
Yeah.
I think it's Swayambhu.
Swayambhu.
Yeah. Okay. And although the wife of Lord Brahmaji is Saraswati Devi, but it doesn't mention it in the Bhagavatam when he creates, all these songs, the Kumaras, because Narada come from the mouth of Brahma.
I think the heart, because it's devotional service.
From the liberation from Brahma. I think it's from the mouth. Narada. Well, anyway, they look like they don't have mother neither.
Yeah. Well, they did. Yeah, I don't understand that one. I mean, I think that it doesn't look like they have a mother, but I guess they're created from. I don't know. I have to think about that. They're created from Lord Brahma's body and different things like that.
Yeah.
So
The thing is, I think that's where probably the answer is that Brahma appears from a lotus, and nobody, even Brahma himself, could not see where the lotus was coming from. So in one sense, it looks like he just appeared. Whereas Narada and the Prajapatis, Daksha, they came directly from Brahma. Yeah, they were created by Brahma. But yes, I mean, there is no description of Brahma uniting with Saraswati and producing as such. It seems he has the potency to produce by himself.
So the sons of Brahma are also Swayambhu.
No, as I said, the way Brahma appears and the way their sons, the way his sons appear are different. Brahma doesn't see, the sons as soon as they appear, they still see Brahma, right? But when Brahma appears, he didn't see Vishnu. He had to perform austerity to see Vishnu. So it's a little different. Okay. Huh? Mouth is a count.
Go ahead, Moses, bro. Oh, Abhimanyu.
You guys were making a point that there are gurus that say, if you believe in Krishna, your life will be perfect, or you don't believe in Krishna, your life will be perfect. Prabhupada actually makes a point in Advent of Krishna in 10th canto that even the atheists, not only are the devotees Krishna conscious, but even the atheists are Krishna conscious or God conscious. Just like the example of Kamsa, where he's completely atheistic. He thinks himself to be, supreme, even to Vishnu, but he's completely in fear of Krishna as death personified. Therefore, he was always meditating on Krishna. So it made me think, like, how you may speak to atheists or people who are atheistic in some aspect, and you talk about them about Krishna or God, and they just blow up on you, like, like you're fanatic, or they just go crazy as if they were pinning it, keeping it pinned like within them, and it's like, because actually they're always thinking about God, in fear, what if God is actually real? But the difference is we actually think of God in a favorable way, so that it just made me think about point. Even the atheists, they are God conscious. Prabhupada makes the point.
Good point. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for class, Prabhu. Kind of have a two-part question. Mahotsaha and Vishnu kind of touched on a little bit of both of what I want to say, kind of, sort of. I read in the 8th canto, I believe it was in the 7th chapter, but however, it was around the time when the demigods and the demons, they all came together to churn the ocean, and they were having so much trouble because of the poison that came out. And so it says that that this form of Krishna that was there with them, that also appeared, they all went to Shiva and asked for help so that he can help relieve them. And so these prayers that they were giving them, it sounded like the prayers that they would be giving to Vishnu. And so in the purport, let me see if I can find the exact purport, but however, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he explained how Krishna acts as Shiva when he's engaged in the material energy. And so I was just wondering, in that same aspect, does Krishna also, I know he was saying that like he takes the role of Brahma and there's nobody else qualified, but I guess during this time when Narad was asking this question, was he taking on that role in a sense, like as guru, Brahma, slash guru to all the demigods at that time, or the sages that Brahma had produced? Because there was also a similar question, or I want to say not question, but similar type of way that Shiva, when he was having so much trouble, and Brahma told him, go pray to Vishnu, and he's like, who? Like, it's somebody bigger than you, So I was just wondering, in that aspect, how does Krishna, Vishnu act in the role of Brahma And also, kind of touch on Hiranyakashipu, when he was praying to Brahma for his austerities, why didn't he correct him? Why didn't Brahma correct him? Because those prayers that he was giving to him, it sounded like they should have been for Vishnu. So Brahma accepted those prayers, and he gave him all these gifts. But then Vishnu ended up, I guess, verbally chastising him and was saying like, you should never do that again. So yeah.
Yeah. So with the first question, as far as this goes, like my understanding of this particular Brahma is not like a Vishnu like avatar. It's mentioned in the Shastra, but I don't know of like any instance that I've read that like a Brahma is like specifically like Vishnu. It seems like it's kind of like a rare thing, because sometimes like Vishnu will take the other post if there's nobody qualified, like Indra sometimes he will take and things like that. But there isn't like so much description of those different things. So this particular Brahma, if it was, it would like highly emphasize that. But there doesn't, from reading the text and everything, and there's whatever as the history goes, it seems to reveal that he's a jiva and like that he's not direct incarnation of Vishnu. As far as like with Hiranyakashipu and Brahma, one thing also too is with that pastime is that, I mean, there's different ways of understanding, but Brahma in some degree actually was conquered by Hiranyakashipu, and the Acharyas make that point because Hiranyakashipu performed these austerities, and he was able to conquer Brahma and bring him down, and that way gain his audience. Because we're hearing, making the point here, you know, so he was, in a sense, he conquered Brahma in that degree. And he offered these prayers to Brahma, and they would have to be go through and analyzed because some aspects of them are true. And those qualities do also apply to Vishnu. But because Brahma's or Hiranyakashipu's, I mean, you have to really look at it and analyze it, but he was, you know, glorifying Brahma as the topmost in the material world, as the creator. And Brahma is the topmost, materially speaking, he has the topmost position, and he is the creator. But Brahma's full position was that he was trying to just stop Hiranyakashipu from causing any more problems in the material world, so that things could go on and function properly. So he was just kind of just trying to like pacify the situation like as soon as possible. So he went there in that regards. So that was kind of like that whole thing. So he offered these prayers as glorification, which is like natural in one sense, because Brahma is obviously greater than Hiranyakashipu to like, because he's a great personality. And that's Vedic etiquette, is that, you know, the Kshatriyas, they would offer great respects to like Brahmanas, or Brahmanas were offered great respect. I don't think Hiranyakashipu was a Kshatriya actually. But they would offer respect to Brahmanas. So that culture is there. Hiranyakashipu was cultured, actually, in a lot of ways. Even though he's an atheist, but he didn't divorce his wife, and you know whatever. He terrorized Brahminical culture, but he also respected Lord Brahma. Anyway, so there's different things that you have to really analyze it, but that's just kind of like touching up on some things.
You were mentioning about Lord Brahma and how he's a pure devotee, but sometimes he's in mixed devotional service. And I was just wondering if you could explain that point. I don't know if I maybe missed it.
Yeah, so what I was explaining was, so not that sometimes Lord Brahma is a pure devotee and he does mixed devotional service, but sometimes a specific, so Brahma is the post. So in one universe, Brahma may be a pure devotee, and then in another universe, he may be a mixed devotee, and then in another universe, he may be a straight, like, karmakanda, like, you know, whatever. He's just, like, all into, like, just, like, having his regulated sense gratification. So it just depends on the individual. Just like, you know, whatever in Atlanta. You have some people, like, you know, there's some devotees here in this temple, and, you know, everybody's here interested in, like, pure devotional service. And then there's probably some other people in Atlanta, they're interested in like doing devotional service and then doing something else. And then you have all the other people that are living in the city, they're just interested in whatever. So it's an individual inclination, that's all. Yeah. Okay. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai.